Hello and welcome. Thank you everyone so much for joining today's CE event presented by Jacqueline Boyd about motivational interviewing. We're really excited to hear from Jacqueline on this topic. And actually we chose this topic because many of you in the fall had mentioned to me in a survey that this was a topic you wanted to learn more about. So we've got a good attendance here of 123 people. We're going to have about 170 people probably join us. So a couple of housekeeping things. First things is that this presentation is being recorded. So we will be able to send it out after the event to everyone that attended. However, you will not be eligible to get CE credit unless you attend the whole thing or the majority of it. And then as the event goes on, everyone that is in the event today has their microphone and video off. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature so that we can, assist you. We'll do a question and answer portion at the end of the event where myself and Gail Nixick will read out the questions out loud. Or if it's something that we can reply to during the event, we will do that. And Jackie actually does a great job checking the Q&A throughout the event too. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Gail now to talk a little bit about how the CE portion of this event works and make sure that you guys can get all your credits along with what ElderWorks is all about. So take it away, Gail.
Thank you, Lauren. I am Gail Nixick, and I'm joined here today with my colleague, Carol Rasso. And a little bit about the CEs. We are providing them today on 1 hour credit for nurses, social workers, licensed nursing home administrators, LCPCs. As Lauren mentioned, we do need you to stay on for the duration of an hour in order to get the credit for the CE. Once you complete the evaluation, we will be sending the certificate to you via email. Also regarding the chat box, those are to be used for the questions that we could ask Jackie along the entire presentation. So please use that, or if you need some clarification on a question, please ask us and we will do our best to answer all the questions. Just a little bit about ElderWorks Educational Services. We are a 501(c) nonprofit. We help you, professionals, families, anyone who's trying to navigate the process for care services for older and disabled adults in the Chicago area. So whether that is for them to remain safely in their home or transition them to a community. We also provide a comprehensive Illinois service directory with all different services also to help you in that entire process. So I'd like to turn it back to Lauren for an introduction to Jackie and look forward to talking to everybody throughout the presentation. Thanks so much.
Yes, and thank you so much, Gail. And so this event is hosted by both ElderWorks and Belmont Village Senior Living. Belmont Village has 5 Chicagoland locations, and you'll see right now in our videos, we've got Jody and Debbie over at our Buffalo Grove location, Erin at our Geneva Road or Carroll Stream location, Janine, who is with our Glenview community. She's been with us for so long. How long? 15 years, Janine? So I'm sure you all know her by now. And of course, Shalina at our Oak Park community too. And in our 5 Chicagoland communities, we have both assisted living and secured memory and a program that's also in between called Circle of Friends that Belmont is known for. It's for folks with mild cognitive impairment to build cognitive reserves and provide a routine throughout the day for folks that don't need a secured memory setting, but do need redirection and a structure to their average day. That's really what Belmont is known for, that Circle of Friends program and the stimulation that we provide in all of our levels of care. And the last thing I'll say about Belmont is we are so excited. All 5 of our communities are on the vaccine list in the next 3 weeks. So we have our different vaccine days coming up. All of our staff and residents are eligible for that. And, it's really helping us turn a corner. So that being said, if you have any questions, please reach out to your local Belmont Village rep. But I am going to introduce Jacqueline Boyd, who is the founder of the care plan. She is dynamic. She is really trying to provide resources for folks that want to learn. She is, really working with medical providers on how to work with older adults that have HIV, that are LGBTQ, and just regular older adults that need assistance with navigating aging. She's got tons of experience, over 15 years. She works in the Chicagoland area. She currently obviously is working remote, but I'm going to let Jackie talk a little bit more about everything that she does, and we'll turn it over to Jackie. So reminder, use the question and answer chat feature throughout the presentation today, and Jackie, take it away.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And can we all just give some appreciation to the team that brought this together, Lauren and ElderWorks, Belmont Village. We really appreciate you. This is what I consider to be an incredibly useful tool, motivational interviewing, in working with older adults and in working with the family dynamics that all 172 of us are very experienced in dealing with. Sometimes you just need new tools, and sometimes we need that back to basics reminder. So today is all about motivational interviewing. And as Lauren said, I'm Jackie Boyd. My pronouns are she, her, and they, them. And I'm the founder of a company called The Care Plan. At The Care Plan, we provide care planning, care management services from an LGBTQ plus perspective. And I've done a lot of training and educational work for social workers, for nurses, for LGBTQ orgs that are figuring out for the first time, well, how do we serve older adults? Because oftentimes when they started, they weren't thinking about their communities actually aging. And so get to do a lot of fun and meaningful work. But I love these opportunities to connect as providers and share the lessons that we've learned. So my heart is with all of you. I know that so many of us are super stressed right now because of the pandemic, because of everything that we've all been dealing with this year. So take a breath, take a moment, take care of yourself in this space. If you need water, if you need lunch, if you need to not be on video, I completely understand. And I will be asking for some participation. Would love to hear some of your experiences for those of you who have used motivational interviewing before. Has it worked for you? How do you apply it? When are times where motivational interviewing maybe hasn't been the right answer? So we'll get into all of that today. Please use the chat. I will be paying attention to the chat. With 170 folks, we can't all be on at the same time, and we only have an hour. So buckle in, buckle up, and let's get ready. My contact info is on the screen if you want training for your organization or if you want to talk about any of these concepts more. So today's goal is, what is motivational interviewing? How do we use it? What are the primary skills that we need as providers? And then we'll do the work of applying those techniques. Let me just check in with the team. Do we have the ability to do breakout rooms? I'm imagining we might not with 170 people, but if somebody, we do not. Okay, all right. So then some of this will be role play in person. So I'll just bring up somebody to do some role play with me to apply these skills. But I will encourage you to take them beyond our time together today and to apply them immediately within the context of your work. So what is motivational interviewing? Motivational interviewing is a client-centered counseling style that developed and was informed by Carl Rogers' work in the 1950s. And it centers the client in the healing process and in the process of how do we resolve ambivalence. This is super important for us as providers to remember, because oftentimes folks are coming to us as the experts, right? They're like, well, you're the social worker at the hospital, so you need to tell me the right thing to do. Or you're my case manager in the community, you need to tell me the right answer. Anybody who's ever put together a treatment plan, a discharge plan, a care plan, knows that unless the person has decided for themselves what they want to do, that it's all just nice words on a piece of paper. So this is about, what are the behaviors that need to change and how can that person make those changes? How can they resolve the ambivalence they're feeling or the resistance they're feeling for themselves? This is super, super helpful when it comes to working with seniors because nobody wants to be told what to do. But we have a tendency as providers sometimes to be victims of ageism ourselves and be asking the adult children about their idea for what the senior wants, or to assume, hey, you're coming to me to talk about senior housing, you must have already made this decision. Motivational interviewing helps us remember, listen, this person gets to decide for themselves, and my job is to just help them understand their motivations, the challenges and barriers, and what it's going to take to overcome those. So you're going to find that motivational interviewing actually requires a reframing. And instead of bringing all the resources and bringing all the solutions, being comfortable letting the client explore for themselves. So don't worry, we're going to get into technique, but the technique is much less important than the relationship that you're building. And I know a lot of people on this call, you all are phenomenal practitioners. You're probably already using motivational interviewing techniques. So hopefully this is mostly a refresher for you, but do put your questions and the scenarios you may be struggling with in the chat, because I want to try and answer as many of those questions as I can. So as I mentioned, motivational interviewing as a concept has roots in the 1950s. Carl Rogers came up with the person-centered counseling style that envisions the person who's helping being alongside the person who is trying to make change. So whereas prior to that, we have really Freudian influenced frameworks that are, pretty pathologizing of that image we all have of the person laying on the couch and the therapist or the counselor saying, taking their notes and making a diagnosis and giving a treatment plan. In the 1950s, we start to see that change, and more of a more person-centered and empowering framework comes to the stage, which is, hey, people can make choices for themselves, can explore their own motivations, and our job as counselors isn't to fix them, it's to help them sort through their problems. So how did we get to motivational interviewing? You'll see on the screen, it was developed by Dr. William Miller and Dr. Stephen Rolnick in the 1980s and 90s. And it was originally used around treatment for alcoholism. So now we apply motivational interviewing in a lot of different scenarios. And I use it all the time with the seniors we work with. I also use it with my team in a coaching context. So just know these concepts are really great communication tools and can be used in different areas in your life. So let's take the example of what Dr. Miller and Dr. Rolnick were working on. Dr. Miller was essentially an intern at an alcoholism treatment center. And he noticed that many of the people receiving treatment did just as well in their recovery if they were working with peers as if they were working with counselors. He also started to do some studies to understand, does the counseling style have anything to do with people's outcomes, with whether they respond to treatment? And found that people who had a less directive style, who were more collaborative in the process with their clients, that their numbers were better in terms of people that were able to overcome their addiction to alcohol. So he did a lot of studies about this, and I have a video in the presentation that I encourage you to watch, which is him telling his story about how he came to this realization. And just the difference it makes to remember the power that is at play in our organizations and in our work when people come to us for help, and that we don't have all the answers. Our job is to be alongside the person in their care. One of the values that we have at the care plan that speaks to this is that clients are the expert of their experience. And it's necessary to say that because so many clients feel like they're told what to do when it comes to their health, and that doctors are making decisions for them without them really being an equal partner in it. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about motivational interviewing. How can we be equal partners in someone's wellness journey or in their journey with their work with us? So if you want to learn more, that's where you can go. So let's do an immediate application, because the main tenets of the motivational interviewing style, the main tools that you're going to use is an acronym called OARS. It's asking open-ended questions, which I'm sure all of us are experts at this point. So asking open-ended questions, making statements of affirmation, so that's O and A, reflecting back what you've heard, and then summarizing. So if you don't remember anything else from today, just remember OARS, open-ended questions, affirmation statements, reflection, and summarizing. And again, keep in mind, it's less about the technique. So you're not in a conversation thinking, oh my gosh, I have to ask a question, make an affirmation statement, reflect what I heard, and summarize. It's not that technical. It's bring in all of those elements in your conversation. So if we have a scenario where you're meeting a new client, say you are doing an intake, you could easily go through a checklist, right? And be like, what's your name? What's your address? What's your date of birth? Who's your physician? How much money do you have in the bank? Who are the people that are involved in your care? We could do that, but is that really a conversation? Does that build trust? Does that help the client in front of you feel like they're an equal partner at the table? No, it makes people feel like they're a part of a process and not really engaged. So how different is it when we ask an open-ended question to start, or when we affirm someone and say, hey, thank you so much for being here. I know that you have a lot going on, and I know you have a lot of different choices when it comes to your care. I appreciate your trust, and I appreciate that you chose me to have this conversation. So affirming the relationship, affirming the person's decisions, and then starting with an open-ended question will get you so much more info than that checklist approach. Does that make sense to everybody? And let me see in the chat if what I'm saying makes sense. So I want to see y'all in the chat. I'm not seeing much in the chat yet. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. So let's check in on June, the client whose information is on the screen. She's 84 years old and is having difficulty at home. She approached your ALF to learn more and see if she would be comfortable living there. So she's starting to have some trouble. She's in her mid-80s and she's considering assisted living. She comes across as really focused. She actually has a checklist and a set of questions for you. After answering all her questions, you don't feel like you've really understood her needs or made a good impression on her. She's kind of like, okay, great, thank you. I'll call you when I make a decision. What are some open-ended questions that we can ask to engage her? How would you turn that conversation around from her just sort of saying, okay, boom, 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 here's what I need to know. Thank you, and I'll call you when I need you. How can we turn that conversation around? Let's put it in chat, and maybe if one of my fellow panelists, one of the fellow organizers who I know have these conversations with people, if you want to chime in and talk about some of the open-ended questions that you might ask in this situation. Lauren, Aaron, anybody want to chime in and talk through this with me?
Yeah, I mean, if someone hasn't opened up and given enough information, some of the questions I like to ask are, what are your biggest concerns right now, or what keeps you up at night? If you really need to get a little bit more information on this scenario and the situation, like what's an average day look like for June, what did she used to do that she doesn't do anymore? to kind of open it up. And at some point through those discussions, I find that our clients will say something along the lines of like, gosh, mom, she used to be so social. And to be like, yeah, it doesn't sound like she's getting social exposure anymore, right? Like using that affirmation of what's going on, of, okay, that's something that is, you've just said out loud. So let's reaffirm it. Yeah, that's my experience. Anyone else want to pop in?
I think also another question that we might ask a family is typically something like, can you share with me what is a typical day for mom or dad?
Great. Yeah, these are great suggestions. And the reason why these open-ended questions are important is because it moves it from being a transaction to being engaging. So the minute you ask somebody about themselves and let them tell you what their priorities are, what their concerns are, what their real thoughts are about moving into a facility, that's how you're going to get to the place of then eventually planning or feeling like there's enough of a connection there, that there's trust. There's a lot of great comments coming through in chat. Thank you, everybody who's weighing in. I love, Gail, your question of, okay, June, tell me about yourself. What are some of the things you would like to do? Why are you considering this move? Might be a good question, because that will tell you why she's making this choice right now and what it means to her. Jessica said, what does an ideal living space look like for you? Margot, I love your question. If she's somebody who's super businessy, saying, well, how do you respond to what I shared? How does this fit into your vision for your life over the next 5 to 10 years? What else would you either want to know about us, or what should we know about you? Those are the kinds of open-ended questions that you can use to create authenticity in the relationship with your client, and let them know this is not just transactional, and I'm not in too much of a hurry. I'm here to listen, and I want to understand your concerns. And then affirmation statements. There were also some great affirmations that came up in the chat, talking about focusing on, Jean, thank you for your point, what's important to them. So saying things like, and what Marilee said, hi, Marilee, acknowledge and compliment how organized she is in her approach. To say things like, June, I appreciate you investing the time to explore your options. Oftentimes people call us when it's too late, or when they're up against the wall. You're really smart for doing your research ahead of time and making sure you find the right home. I hope that we're that home for you. What I heard is, and then you move into the reflection of what I heard is, you want to be sure that you can have your autonomy, that it would be nice to have meals prepared if you want to have them, and to be part of a community. That's what I heard. Did I understand you correctly? So you reflect and allow them the chance to again engage and to say yes or no, or elaborate on it. And then you summarize. So even with motivational interviewing, you can get from the place of kind of introduction and getting to know you to a place of establishing trust and making a plan. You can get there in one conversation. That shouldn't be the expectation, though, because oftentimes when people are coming to us, they're making really important decisions. So they might want more time to consider their options. So motivational interviewing can be used in a lot of different contexts. And I want to be sure we continue moving on because we have a lot of ground to cover today. So these are the goals. If the tenants and the skills you're using are asking open-ended questions, making affirmation statements, reflecting back what you heard, and summarizing any decisions that were made or what happened in that conversation, these are the overall goals. This is why we use motivational interviewing. It's really a way to do successful planning around those behavior changes. So let's say, for example, we have a client whose family is really resistant. They typically don't answer when you call. When you do, they're often angry about something. And they're they're not engaged, they're viewing you as the bad guy, and you can't get to a place of planning together because their walls are up so much. How might we try to start that conversation? Say you've got that difficult family member on the phone and you think you're about to get an earful, but you're trying to change the dynamic. What are some questions you would ask to engage that person? And let me see it in the chat. How would we engage someone who's resistant and who maybe is angry at us? What's a question you would ask that family member to start to engage them? And if any of my fellow panelists want to hop on, would love to hear your thoughts. Don't leave me hanging here, y'all. I know that we all have had these families or had those challenging people. Loving some of this. What are you concerned about? Can you share your concerns? What do you think your loved one needs? Absolutely. Can I get one of the other panelists, Lauren, if you don't mind hopping in? I'd love to role play this situation with you to see how we can move through these stages of motivational interviewing. And your job's going to be super easy.
Okay.
I'll be you. And why don't you be a family member that is trying to make a decision around moving into Belmont Village?
Okay.
And you had a negative interaction with somebody else and are angry at me. You're like, haven't met me, but you're angry at me. And you don't think that Belmont Village is the right place. And you're pretty sure you don't want to send your parent there.
Okay.
Okay. So get into that headspace. I know
yeah.
You're super nice. Get into that mean headspace.
Okay. So, gosh, after that assessment with your director of nursing, I just felt like there was no connection with my mom, and I don't think she has my mom's best interests in mind, and I just don't know if this is the right care for my mom.
Yeah. Lauren, thank you so much for letting me know. I really appreciate your trust in telling me what happened. What I can tell you is that's not the way that we do business here, and I'm not sure what happened, but I will follow up on it. What it sounds like, though, is that you're not sure if Belmont Village is the right place, and you just had that one interaction. Have you had any other chances to connect with the community or talk with anybody else, or haven't had a chance to yet?
At this point, we've only considered two options, and the other option is way in the suburbs, and we haven't done the assessment yet, so we haven't met the director of nursing. So you're our first communication with the care team directly.
Well, goodness, I certainly wish that had been a better start. We will work to change that story, because that's not who we are. We really believe in community, and we strive to support our elders as the unique, resilient people that they are. So it sounds like Belmont Village was your first pick because the location is convenient. Obviously, you had heard good things from other community members, and it would be nice to make this decision sooner rather than later so mom can just get settled and be happy. Am I understanding those reasons for why you were looking at us correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. We live around the corner, and we've heard the best of the best. And I'm just so surprised by this interaction that I had last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it goes against what you had heard and what you were expecting. So I promise I will look into that and then circle back with you about what happened there. But let's focus on the future. Can you tell me a little bit about what quality of life is like for your mom? When you think about quality of life for her and seeing her in senior housing and sleeping better at night and knowing that the family, all that stress is off you all, what does that look like? What does it feel like? What's important to her?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think, the biggest component is that she'll get that social interaction and peace. And, you know, I'll be able to sleep better at night, and my calm, or serenity will come from knowing that there's care available when it's there or when she needs it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it seems like she's doing pretty well on her own, but you're seeing the signs that, maybe she's not bathing as often as she should and could use some help with meals because she started to lose weight. So, those functional pieces are there. But what I hear you saying is the social aspect is super important, and having people that she recognizes that she can engage in and that will engage her. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, well, and right now when she's at home, of course, we go to see her, and my brother goes to see her, but it's difficult because obviously we're all in masks and it's short periods and it's 6 feet, and that's going to be the same where, where if she moves in, but at least there'll be more people to kind of bump elbows with. So she likes to chat, she likes to have her coffee and kind of just hang out with folks. That's always been her routine. And right now she can't do that. So, I think that that's going to be an opportunity for her to have some normalcy back, going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I really hear that and really appreciate how intentional you and your family are being about this decision because, I imagine your mom thought and wanted to stay at home for the rest of her life. And that's just not feasible for most of us because of the care involved. So, I know that you are looking at us and another organization. If you're open to it, I'd like to give you a few more chances to get to know really the breadth of our team and to see how we're going to build that bridge for your mom to have the social engagement and quality of life that she wants. Because I know you haven't had a chance to see that yet. And so, if you're open to it, I would love to introduce you to our director of activities, who's responsible for doing that outreach, creating that part of our community, and really assessing for each person what do they care about, what's important to them, and how can we bring that aspect of who they are into their day to day life here at Belmont Village. Would that be okay? Could we set a time
Yes,
for a conversation?
absolutely. I'd love to do that.
Wonderful. Well, Lauren, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you, in effect, giving us a second chance to show you who we really are. And we will work to earn that trust. Have so enjoyed getting to know more about your mom and her motivations and what's important to her. And I think she would be a great fit. But let's do a little bit more due diligence, have you meet a few more people, and make sure that you're comfortable before we talk those details. So I'll circle back to you with an email. And thank you so much. Again, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Gosh, Jacqueline, you did a great job there. Nailed it. Love that.
Yeah. So how did that feel to you? Because you did a great job bringing that sort of agitation to the front. How did it feel once we started asking open-ended questions and affirming where you were
Well,
at?
I don't know if you guys noticed, but I noticed about halfway through that my face, I was like trying to like get in the zone of being mad. It's not my natural state. And so I was like, I'm gonna be mad. And then like you started asking these questions and all of a sudden my face relaxed, and I like the body language I felt all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm comfortable. And I feel like I'm moving forward in this conversation of how we can kind of get past it. So, I thought you did a great job of reaffirming, yeah, you're a little upset by that conversation and we need to build that trust. Let's try again. Thank you so much. And let's talk more about what's important in that next step too. So, yeah, I thought it was really great with a disarming piece to it as well.
Yeah. And that's why I think motivational interviewing is so useful to us. It's not just on the good days. It's not just a great strategy for when you're feeling your best and your most present. It's so helpful on your tough days, on those days where you're stressed, where you're worried that you're not going to get through your to-do list, where the family or the client is just, you've had the conversations and your stress level is up to here. This is so helpful because it goes from telling to asking. Instead of trying to say, defend yourself or say, oh my gosh, that would never happen here. We have to acknowledge people's concerns affirm who they are and affirm the strength of the relationship, and then move forward. Does that make sense to everybody? Put in the chat if anything I'm saying makes sense. I wish we were in person because I could just see your faces, but please put in the chat if like this is helpful, if you know, if it's skill building that is of use to you. So great, great, great. And if you have other situations that you want me to role play, put those in the chat too. I know Lauren and I know her role, so that's why I'm picking on you.
I actually, I have an example that we can use if you want to run with it.
Yeah.
We've got, and I'm certain a lot of these professionals on here have experienced this, a family that is, having difficulty accepting the level of care that their mom needs, specifically for memory care. It's really difficult, and they don't really understand like what a MOCA score is or why it's a tool that like professionals use, or the importance of putting that resident into an appropriate level of care, right? Everyone wants their mom and dad to be running marathons at 92, but the reality is with dementia, memory loss, mobility challenges, we want to make sure that those people are getting what they need so that they can continue to have successful days. So, I don't know if we need to role play that, but I can tell that this is going to be helpful for me to use these tools as I'm communicating with that family about, gosh, I hear that you're, upset with, wanting your mom to be in a different level of care. The strategies of our care levels here are to make sure that we are, supporting our residents to be as independent as possible while also giving them the assistance that they need. And, like asking a little bit more why it's important to be in that higher level of care, to drill down a bit more on, gosh, well, those needs that you want in the other level of care are being met in this appropriate level of care, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that this is going to be really helpful for me. So
awesome. And thank you everybody for chiming in on chat. I've seen your comments. I see that we have a lot of housing folks on the line. So let's do this example, Lauren, in a housing context. But for anybody that's running a caregiving agency or a home health, or you're a discharge planner and you're trying to have these conversations with a family about what's needed next, all of this should still be relevant. You would just fine tune it to be a conversation with you and from your role.
Yeah.
So Lauren,
I'm actually going to use a different example that I have in my head. So it's not what I just talked about, but it's on the same level. And it's fresh in my head about not accepting a certain level of care, or that someone needs help. So I'll let you go first, Jackie.
Okay. So again, I'll be you, and you are a family that is struggling to acknowledge that their parent needs help. Well, actually, let's do it a little bit differently. Let's say you're the senior, and the family recognizes that the senior needs help, but you're like, nah, not me, I'm good.
Okay, so I'm the older adult. Got it.
Yep. Okay. Hey, Lauren, it's so nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jacqueline. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I believe that we're here because your family had reached out wanting to get some information about the work that we do at Belmont Village and seeing if housing here might be a good fit for you. Can you tell me how you're feeling about that? And are you on board? Where's your head at with the idea of a move?
Well, your place is really beautiful and it's very nice. And I'm so glad you're in the neighborhood, but I don't need that. You are going to help so many older adults, that need assistance, but I'm fine at home. And maybe in 5 years, I'll come to your place when I need it, but not anytime soon. I'm still going to play bingo with my friends at the local senior center down the street. And I still try and do my own grocery shopping. So I really don't need this.
It sounds like you're doing well enough. Your kids could be moving in with you.
You could say so. I raised them.
Well, these conversations can be a challenge because oftentimes our kids are ready for us to make the next move and we don't see it. So thank you for your trust and even talking with me about this. And whenever it's the right time, I really hope that you will consider Belmont Village, because we have a lot of really smart, really funny, super independent people that are, I think you would get along with and could connect with. But let me ask you, let's take it back and talk about just this stage of life and what you envision for yourself in this stage of life. Have you thought, when you were younger, what did you think you would be doing in your 70s and 80s? And, what is quality of life to you right now?
Well, it's so hard with this COVID thing, but I like to see my friends still, but it's a little more difficult to get out of the house. And I'm still young, I'm still with it, and I can do a lot of things on my own, but it just takes me a little longer. And I still will get lunch with my girlfriends once a month with my book club, and we all go to the same restaurant every time. And I talk to my friends, I still handle my finances. I guess I just thought that maybe I'd be doing um more things every day, but I gotta just take it slow, because it's one day at a time and I can only do so much.
Yeah. That's really smart, to one, stay as active as you are, because the more active you are, the better your quality of life is going to be. You're going to keep your mobility for longer. You're going to, feel good. And I know COVID makes it tough, but it sounds like you're doing a really great job of staying super active.
I'm trying. Even some days walk a whole mile on my own.
It sounds like, and if I'm wrong, let me know, but it sounds like you kind of have some ideas about what moving into senior housing looks like or means. Have you ever known anybody who moved into senior housing, and what were their experiences?
Yeah, I had a friend that moved into that big place downtown, and they loved it. She loved the people there, and all the things that she got to do, and she's in this beautiful apartment. But that's just not for me. Like, I like my independence.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely encourage you, because, I mean, if you met some of our residents, they would tell you how independent they are, because having their home here has allowed them to just have the support when they need it, but to not feel restricted. They're still out in the community. A lot of folks here are movers and shakers, just like yourself, and that's a super important part of who they are. So whether it's, care at home or moving into senior housing, what's important is you being you and not having restrictions and being able to be exactly who you are and do what you want to do every day, is what I'm hearing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I just don't want anyone to tell me what I have to do, because I take my medications on my own. And I still want to be able to just live on my own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus, I'm
Now,
young. I'm only 85.
yeah, absolutely. And when you look to that future, 5 years down the road was what you said, like far, many years down the road, when you look to a place where you might benefit from either being in some sort of senior supportive housing or having a lot more care in home, what are those markers for you? How will you know it's time to make a change?
That's a good question. I don't know if I can't get up on my own, or if I'm falling, or if I get dementia, but I don't think I'm gonna get dementia because I've made it this far.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hearing, so if there's memory loss issues that maybe make it so you can't be safe, if your mobility changes and so then you're not able to get out or to move around or to care for yourself as easily, those would be factors to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me ask you another question. Have you ever cared for someone at this stage of life? Like, did you take care of your parents or your grandparents or friends or a loved one? Have you ever had that experience of like what the next 10 to 15 years might look like?
Not really, actually. My parents passed a bit younger in life, and I've got friends that are my age, and most of them are either living with their adult children or still are living at home.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, part of the reason why I'm so passionate about this work and why I do what I do is because I've seen what happens when people don't make the choices that are right for them soon enough, right? All of us hope that we will be healthy and well and in our right minds for the majority of our lives. The issue comes when we don't know that those changes have happened or when they will happen. So I think the reason why your kids are bringing this up is because they're trying to be proactive, right? And it sounds like you're kind of viewing it as too soon from what I'm hearing. You're not feeling like you're ready now, which absolutely makes sense. If we play this out, what would happen if you didn't recognize that you were having some challenges? What if you had memory loss and you didn't know it and weren't aware of it? How would you want to be cared for? What would be important to you?
Gosh, it'd be important that the people were nice and, could help me at any time, and that I trusted them. And that, I felt like it was my home still.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I hear that. And I think that that's so important. Um, and I want to encourage you to bring that same sense of independence and curiosity that you bring to every other area of your life to the idea of moving into senior housing. And I encourage you to do that because obviously your kids are thinking about it and they may be seeing some changes that you may be seeing but you may not be seeing. But to know whether it's next year or 5 years from now where you're going to be comfortable is all about choice. It's all about your choice and your decisions. So I just want to encourage you to stay curious, and I would love to invite you to our next luncheon so that you could at least meet some of the people here and start to get new information about what senior housing is now, because it is not the way that it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. It has really changed. And the seniors in our community are a huge part of that change. They tell us what they want. We make sure that we're putting programs together and bringing in lecturers and providing the information that's important to them. So I would just love the opportunity for you to meet them and start to change the story that you might be playing in your head. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, I would, and you're right. I do, even if it's not tomorrow and it's 5 years from now, I do want to make the decision myself. I don't want my kids to do it. I know they're very concerned about me, but I've got a life I'm leading, but at some point I probably will need some care, and I guess I'd rather know what my options are before it's an issue.
Yep. Well, I just want to thank you for this conversation. You and I will be talking. You have my number. I will follow up with you when we have that next luncheon. And I'll send you some information. I want to commend you for being as straightforward as you are and as honest as you are, because that's how you're going to get that quality of life you're looking for. Again, whether it's at home or in assisted living or someplace like Belmont Village. So thank you so much.
Thank
End
you.
scene.
And see. Well, no, I thought that the really important part of this is that I'm seeing a lot of really great chat responses from participants here about, gosh, really challenges with accepting levels of care, accepting what that future might look like. And I think it's important to recognize that the next step isn't always going to be that someone's moving into a level of care or getting a caregiver at home or using a walker or what it might be. The next step might be, okay, they're open to the idea and they're going to come in and take a tour, or maybe they'll start physical therapy where the therapist can try and help train them on how to use a walker, or whatever that next step is. Like, let's introduce you to the caregiver that might come in so you can see if you like them, right?
Yeah.
That next
Yep.
step doesn't always have to be the end goal. It might be a series of small motivational interviews over time to get you to that that large decision. And I think you did a very good job of getting my character on board with, okay, the next step is just coming to see it, even if it's not for tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of this, and to Diane, you had put in the Q&A, a lot of this is about what you're giving up your space, giving up your garden, giving up your home. As practitioners, it is so important that we acknowledge what's important to people and not try to gloss over it, right? If I think back to when I was supervising and supporting caregivers, I was making matches with caregivers and clients all the time. And you don't always have the right caregiver for the situation. But if you lie or you gloss over it and say, no, it's going to be perfect, it's going to be the greatest fit, it erodes the trust. But if you say, hey, I understand that who your ideal caregiver is, this person doesn't have that personality, but she's got the skills to keep your loved one safe. And this is just the person we're going to have in place here for until we can find that right next person that has the right availability. So if you're willing to try, even though this person doesn't have what we would like as the right personality, but they have the skills, this is who we'd like to try. Same thing with senior housing. People are not moving into a utopia. They're moving into a housing organization that has pluses and minuses. It's helping them weigh out those pluses and minuses and figuring out what's really important to them. I think in most of our conversations as providers, what we bring to the table is education about where those pitfalls are. Because our clients are going through aging for the first time with no education. So they don't know the risks of what happens if you wait to make that decision, but we do. And so sharing, not to scare people, but to educate them on, well, what's going to happen, right? If one of your markers for moving into a different level of care, accepting more care, is memory loss, and you don't know if you have memory loss, where then is the safety net? How do we problem solve? How do we take it from assuming that senior housing is going to be terrible to getting some new information that can help you make an informed decision? Oftentimes people need to talk about that why. Why is it important to them? And why should they give this a chance? So I'm going to get back. I know y'all, we could literally, usually when I do motivational interviewing trainings, they're like 4 hours. So thank you for this quick version. And thank you to ElderWorks and to Belmont Village for having me. We're getting close to the end of our time. So I want to get through a couple of these other slides. So you heard me in that conversation with Lauren trying to engage her, right? You don't want to move into senior housing. Let's talk about why. Trying to focus in, okay, what are the real motivations here? If you want to be independent, tell me what that looks like. Tell me why you think moving into senior housing is a threat for that. How can we address those barriers or make sure that you don't feel restricted? Evoking their real emotions, not just the I don't wanna response, but what are their real emotions? What are the things they're scared of around this change? What are the things they're afraid they're giving up? Where is the hope and what do they have to look forward to? Then you can get to the planning stage, right? But for Lauren and I's conversation we just did, we're not signing paperwork. We might not sign paperwork for a year, but it's planting seeds and building trust and making sure the client knows this is your life and my job is to support you in having a good life. So again, these are just some of the key skills that I'm putting up to remind. Keep in mind, motivation to change comes from the person. Now, a lot of times with seniors who have memory loss, who are at mid-stage, you're not going to get to that place typically of accepting or being able to articulate all of their motivations. When we're talking about memory loss, oftentimes the brain has deteriorated to the point where any change feels way too scary. So there are limits to motivational interviewing and how you can use it. But in general, these are just some tips and strategies. Direct persuasion is not effective. So you noticed I didn't go into like the laundry list of all the things that Belmont Village could do for this person. I just would drop a little bit of information and then turn it back around to them. That's the most important thing. Just talking at somebody isn't going to build trust, and it's not going to get them to engage with you and open up to you. Okay, you will get this presentation. I believe they can send this presentation out. It's fine for me if you review it. I have some videos in here about examples of motivational interviewing, and one example that is not motivational interviewing, but maybe a typical counseling style. So we're coming to the end, my friends. If you have like one question, I might be able to answer it in the last minute. I wanted to give you the reminder to take care of yourselves. We are still living in the middle of a pandemic. We still have a ton of disruption in our nation, and all of us are feeling that. We're seeing higher acuity from our clients. So please, please, please take care of yourselves and each other. Get rest, take those breaks, protect your off time, and hopefully I'll see you again as the year progresses. Thanks, everybody. And I'll hang tight for a minute if people have questions.
Thank you, Jackie.
We're getting a lot of wonderful jobs, Jackie, of course, I agree. The only question that really pops out at this moment that maybe we didn't cover is more of a conversation behind a scenario specifically about a patient and a case manager for that patient scheduling 3 different appointments to meet with the patient or the client. And then the person cancels, the older adult cancels. So how to engage or re-engage with an older client who seems to have little or no motivation. And I do think that we did kind of talk through this of it's small bite-sized steps. So maybe it's that you have to have a phone call first before it is going into an appointment, but any other information you can provide on that would be helpful or guidance.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. And, you know, a lot of times, another framework I like to use is trauma-informed care, because that framework recognizes that most people we're working with have experienced trauma. They may be afraid of harm in our organizations, or they may be resistant to our help. So trying to create trust, safety, collaboration, choice, and empowerment is it. So motivational interviewing and trauma-informed care work really well together, at least in the way my brain works. And so with a client like that, it's making sure they care, that they know you care about them, not just what they can do for you or that you're ticking a box. So with a client like the client that was in the chat, it might be a phone call, it might be a card, it might be sending flowers, it might just be a text to say, hey, I was thinking about you, I hope you're doing all right. Nothing about business, nothing about anything except that person. Oftentimes, if you can just have an authentic conversation about them, not about your to-dos and not about your particular role, it helps build that trust. And I think Carol, who's on this call, does that particularly well. Carol and I have had conversations about clients she has talked with and helped out and supported for 2 years that maybe they never, worked with ElderWorks officially, but she built that relationship and that trust so that she can be a resource for that person. Can't always do that in all of your roles, but Carol, I know you do this piece particularly well.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. And I think Gail is equally as good at that. That is one of the things I think that we do well at ElderWorks, is to build that trust and that relationship. It's small pieces at a time. So, and with help from professionals like you and Lauren and all the staff at Belmont, that's very helpful to us also to work with the family.
Last question I'll actually dive into, because we've gotten a couple. What is trauma-informed care? I don't know what that is either. Tell me about that.
Well, it's sounding like that might be the name of our next presentation.
I think so, yeah. Okay, well, I'll take a note. I think that's what people want to hear.
I'll shorthand it. Trauma-informed care is another therapeutic framework for how to work with clients. And I apply it, and many other people apply it, not just on the individual level, but on an organizational level. How do we create trauma-informed organizations? But for providers, it's doing exactly what I just said. How do you, in the relationship with your client, build trust, make sure they feel safe, that they're collaborating on their care, that they have choices, and that they feel empowered? And that doesn't happen just by being a good person doing good work. It happens by making sure that there's authenticity in the relationship, that you acknowledge they may have been hurt before. Just like I use some trauma-informed frameworks with Lauren when we were talking about that client that didn't want to move into senior housing. Like, tell me about your experience. What has your experience been around this? Trying to suss out, have you had trauma? Did someone you care about, pass away in a facility in a really terrible fashion? Is that part of your resistance? So trying to understand where the pain points are so that we can work together to move through those. So would love to do another presentation on trauma-informed care, but that's the quick and dirty.
Excellent.
Great. Thanks so much, Jackie.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for participating today. Please complete your CE evaluations and reply to the ElderWorks team with those CE evaluations to get your credits. And I will be sure to send out the recording along with those 2 different links that Jackie just had in the presentation, so that you can share. I've gotten a couple of requests for the 2 video links as examples, Jackie. So we'll be sure to follow up with all that, and catch us next time with Jackie's next talk. We're gonna have to do trauma-informed care. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.